We all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under liberty, justice for all.
Begin with attendance. I'm present, Bob Clark is present, Richard Donald is present. Ray is on Zoom. Gary is present, Eileen is present, and Bill Ray is absent. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the April 1st meeting? And are there any additions, corrections, or revisions?
I've read them and make a motion that we accept them as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further comment? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, I'm gonna adjust the agenda just a little bit tonight because we have two, what I expect might be long discussions ahead of us. And move first to new business item A. A commission discussion and decision regarding removal from the zoning commission for a special permit application for two proposed interior lots for single family residences at property known as Zero Mobile. Number 000-0-3501. And for clarification, the only topic before us tonight is the creation of these two interior lots. We're not talking about the subdivision.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Always good to see you and everyone on the planning commission. Delightful. Hope everybody's well. My name is Kevin McSherry, 38 Fairview Avenue in Naugatuck, Connecticut, and I represent R&Z Enterprises. And here with me this evening is Wayne Zaroli, the engineer on the project. I think he's a familiar with the commission. We just have two rear lots. If you look at the map, we have met the criteria. One of the rear lots is over 31,000 square feet. I think it's 31,376 square feet. And the other one, that's lot one, and the other lot three, is 747,048 square feet. I like saying that because eventually that lot will be divided up a little bit, but that's the size of that lot on the map right now. The two access ways, one access way on the easterly side of lot two on the map is 30 feet wide, so it exceeds the 16-foot requirement. And then the lot, it goes up the pretty much the middle of the subdivision is 50, the lot access way is 50 feet wide. That 50-foot wide pathway eventually will probably be turned into a road. Right now, it's just going to service that one large lot. We've tried to work a little bit with the front of the subdivision, a little bit of design. We'll come back with a full subdivision to this commission, probably hoping for June. Depends how quickly Wayne can draw, and I'm not drawing, so we're probably safe that far as that's concerned. So I think with that, we meet all the criteria. The road there is something we'll get in during the subdivision. I know Wayne has been working on it, tweaking on it, and I'm going to ask him to address a couple issues with the access way and the turnarounds with the fire truck that he's added.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Wayne Zaroli. My home address is 404 Beach Street, Litchfield, Connecticut. I'm both an engineer and a surveyor, and I've been hired to represent R&Z Enterprises on this project. So, as Attorney McSherry just told you, we're planning two interior lots. The first interior lot, lot number one, is along the eastern border. Then we've got lot two separating the first interior lot from the large interior lot, which would be lot number three. We have, a fairly, normal width for road. Up at the western end, I think it's 22 feet wide. In the middle, it's 24 feet wide, and then at the eastern end, it's 21.5 feet wide. So, working with, the engineering department, and Mr. Stewart, the director of Public Works, depending on, what the town determines is the best approach, we may end up widening this somewhat. Actually, the right of way on the Nutmeg Village side is actually up into the lawns a little bit. There are monuments on the other side, so, and the best way to be able to moderate that curve is actually to flatten it a little bit, taking from the Nutmeg Road side of the Nutmeg side of the road. For the large lot, which eventually, we may develop a road, that's a 54 wide access way. And for Jim Stewart's comments, I did add, road returns at the entrance to the road. That's mainly it. You know, as we move into subdivision, we will, you know, certainly be fleshing out the plans more and having additional discussions and comments with the director. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission? Any comments? From Zoom, is there any question or comment? Okay. Hearing none. I entertain a motion. The planning commission send. That the planning commission send a positive referral to the zoning commission regarding a special permit application for 2 interior lots for single family residences at the property known as 0 Mulberry Street. Account number 000-3501, applicant RG Enterprises LLC. Also move. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Is there any other discussion or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing you back here.
Shall return.
Okay, by a show of hands in the audience, who is here for the industrial park? And who is here for the special? Yeah.
We're all here.
Okay. Do you have any preference for where we go?
I think we should start at 6:05 as unscheduled, right?
Okay. Okay. In that case, we will open.
Unless you prefer.
No, I just. All right, we're all doing. There. We'll open the public hearing for the,
That's what she.
That being a point, like this is only like this.
Okay.
Much to go.
You're putting up the map, Ed?
Yeah,
Okay.
You wanna do it, John, or I can do
Well,
it?
I got one up already, if you want.
C20,
There it is.
is it shared with the,
You wanna share yours?
No, if you can, you could.
Well, we'll go. Because I didn't share it yet. Do I have to share first, Laura?
Go back to
You
Zoom.
want me to share mine?
Yeah, go ahead. He'll share his,
This is already.
Yeah.
3.0?
Yeah,
2.0. And then when you go back.
2.0.
Ryan, your files are so large. There it is.
There you go.
Okay.
When you're ready. I'll be on to start.
Go ahead.
All right, so this application we received on April first, it's for a 12 lot industrial park subdivision. Public notices to the adjacent owners went out April 25th, certified mail. It was noticed in the newspaper April 25th and May 2nd. Today's the start of the public hearing, May 6th. Application fees waived, it's a borough application. The tax collector's office reports waived, it's a borough application. We received the engineering report on March 29th, or dated March 29th. We received April 1st. The inland wetlands report, we modified back in 2021, we had them come before wetlands. So we modified that inland wetlands, permit IW 2105, they're actually reducing the amount of wetlands that they're disturbing. Sediment erosion control was approved by the zoning commission on April 17th. Today was the end of the appeal period. WPCA approval was received on April 11th with conditions. I handed that out to you today. Naugatuck Valley Health District approval is not applicable. This is going to be serviced by city sewer and city water. Police commission approval was approved on April 18th. Fire commission approval was April 24th with provisions. Regional planning agency, it did not have to go down to Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments. It was 1,200 plus feet away from the nearest bordering town. Adjacent municipality would have been Beacon Falls, but it is not bordering Beacon Falls. That would have been the closest. Connecticut Water Company referral. On May 2nd, we received an email from Shannon Miles with Connecticut Water. The willingness to serve letter was submitted to Water Resource Planner, and we should have that letter within 2 weeks. And from here, I will have Mayor.
Thank you. For the record, Pete Hess, Mayor and Project Manager for Industrial Park 3. Here with me is Brian Baker from Civil One. And on Zoom, we have our traffic engineer, Chirac Paluzzi from CDM Smith. What I'm going to do is just give you an overview and some of the background and a little bit about the environmental issues. Then I'm going to turn it over to Brian to talk in more detail about drainage and engineering issues. But the first thing I'd like to do is to make sure the record is clear. So everything that Lori Rotella mentioned should of course be included as an exhibit, number one. Number two, also as an exhibit, our record subdivision plan, 45 pages you all have before you, and it's been revised through April 26th. So when you're looking at your plans, you know, there's a bunch of versions, but the one with the 426 is the one where we are today with a lot of the changes requested by town staff. I'd also, for the record, like to make sure that our record subdivision map of lot 1B, prepared by All Seasons Land Surveying, also be included as a formal exhibit. In addition to that, we've also submitted, and I'll be mentioning them briefly, which I'd like to be included in the record, and which we submitted already to the town in hard copy and electronically. But we've submitted a traffic study from CDM Smith. We've submitted our stewardship permit, that I'm going to talk a little bit about, our remedial action plan, and our soil and materials management plan. So I would like to make it clear that those are all part of the record. Now, what we have, and just from an overview standpoint, this is page C.2.0 on our application. And this, what we're looking at, is an 86-acre site that the borough acquired about a year and a half ago. And we've been here before, as you recall. We went through the road network. We received special permits. And since that time, we've been working with various developers to try and find out what size buildings could fit on the lots and where the interest was, because we didn't want to make our final property lines until we had a better idea of who would want to come here and what size buildings they would want to build. So the last step in our process is to define the actual lines. Now, before we even get to that, we're only here on a portion of the 86-acre site. We're here, and if you look at our plan, it's for 49.82 acres, 12 lots. So the easiest way to look at it is what's not included in this subdivision plan. So when we look at the site, it's bisected by the Waterbury branch line. So the train line runs right through the site. The 19 plus or minus acres on the east side of the tracks are not part of this subdivision application. That's a separate piece of land that we are reserving for another future use. And we will be back with that at a later date. We're also not including the portion of land that has been retained by Lanxess, where they have two buildings that are connected by a private driveway, or I guess you could call it a private road. And it connects their existing building at the corner of Spencer and Elm, as well as their research and development lab that exists at 400 Elm Street, and the road in between. So that is not part of this subdivision. Also, we previously sold a piece of property to Industrial Supply, which is a lumber operation, which is operating in various parts of Naugatuck, and they are currently constructing two buildings on the site. So what we are doing is we're going to be finishing and improving the new roadway. It's not even a new road. We're taking the existing road that comes in from Elm Street and goes to the wastewater treatment plant. We're going to make it a modern subdivision road with new utilities and, really update it. And we want this to be a first-class industrial subdivision. We're also improving Elm Street, which already exists and goes to the research and development lab, but we're bringing in new utilities and improving it. So the land is also bisected by a ridge line, which is essentially in the area where I'm pointing the marker. And the land has All right, so the land has an upper tier and a lower tier. And we're working, first of all, on the upper tier, which is the area of Elm Street Extension. So that's what we're here for, to create 12 industrial building lots in strict accordance with our industrial subdivision regs, which we recently revised. So the first thing I'd like to say is that the plans prepared by Brian have gone through complete reviews by all the commissions. Also, in the record, I'd like to make clear we have a report from Jim Stewart, where he lists 10 conditions that he's asking for. And we agree with all 10 of his suggestions, and Brian will be making the changes. We also agree with all of the requests from the conditions from the Fire Commission and the WPCA. So what we have here is a little different from normal because everyone at the borough level, the fire marshal, the building inspector, all the agencies are trying to make this a perfect plan so that we will have a really first-class industrial site. Now, by way of background, as we all know, this was previously the home of the United States Rubber Company, which, among other things, discovered aniline and acetone that were used in the war effort, to speed up processing rubber so that our troops could have proper wear. Problem was that aniline and acetone create some environmental issues. So for the last 20+ years, Uniroyal and their successors, the most recent successor being Lanxess, have been remediating the site. And when we entered into our agreement with Lanxess, the agreement is pretty simple, really. There's a lot of nuances, but it's pretty simple. What it basically says is that anything in the ground that has to be removed or remediated is the responsibility of the seller, Lanxess. The borough's responsibility is to come in, build buildings, and cap the land with buildings or parking lots. So in that regard, this site is no longer a RCRA site. It used to be a RCRA site where corrective actions had to be done, which were done and are the responsibility of the seller. And we've received 2 stewardship permits. And those stewardship permits, which I referenced, you have with you, they are exhibits. And what they basically say, a stewardship permit is basically a development permit where you have to come in and finish. In other words, what we have to do as a town is to make sure the buildings and the parking lots cover materials that are not bad enough to have to be removed, but they have to be capped. They have to be underneath something. So when we do agreements or bring in a company, we don't sell them the land and say, here's your lot, build something. We enter into a development agreement, which is monitored by our LEP, Woodard and Kern, and we make sure that all the soils are managed in accordance with the soil management plan. And the soil management plan is part of the record. So what we have and what you have before you is our remedial action plan, our stewardship permit, and our soil management plan. So that all of these things are monitored during construction. And in addition, every lot as it's built will have to go for site plan approval at zoning and will be monitored by our LEP to make sure everything is done in accordance with the soil management plan. Other than that, it's a pretty simple industrial subdivision, except for utilities. Now, remember, there used to be 38 buildings there that have been demolished. So there's easements of record all over the place. So Brian will explain this in a little more detail. But what we've done is we've eliminated what we don't need and we've created what we do need to make sure that, you know, every property has proper utilities. And Brian will say a few things about that. The other thing I'd like to mention is that, our subdivision regulations, now not our industrial regulations, but the subdivision regulations in general, talk about open space for, you know, mostly to protect, you know, for mostly for residential areas. So, at the recommendation of Jim Stewart, we've supplied, a request to waive the open space requirement. Other than that, everything that we're proposing is in full compliance with all regulations and, the conditions that have been imposed are, you know, really to protect the borough, and we agree with them. And, we also have Jim Stewart to make sure that Brian does everything properly. And, you know, we really want this to be a first-class subdivision. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Baker, and he can take you in a little more detail through the plans.
Thank you, Mayor. For the record, Brian Baker with Civil One, a licensed engineer in the state of Connecticut. We've been hired by the borough to prepare the subdivision plans and also oversee the original surveying and wetlands flagging. So we've been at this for a number of years, getting this project together. The mayor did a good job of giving you the overall overlay. So what we have in the subdivision plans is there are for the infrastructure that we're actually going to build to service these lots. And that's part of the borough's requirements. We have your detailed design plans for the infrastructure, which consists of the driveway and parking area to Lanxess. It's going to be constructed. The reason that's going to be constructed separately is right now their driveway comes up what is going to be Elm Street extension. So we're going to take that and build it as a town road. It's already 30 feet wide, but it does need to be milled and have some additional drainage in it. There's already utilities, all the utilities necessary, water, gas, electric in that section running up the driveway. So the utilities for and lot 9, which is this large lot, also has an easement, access easement to get to the back of that cul-de-sac, access and utility. So lots 9, 10, 11, and 12 will be serviced with utilities in Elm Street extension. Then there's 2 smaller lots off of Cherry Street extension and a proposed fuel cell project on one of the lots. These will be serviced off of utilities that exist in Cherry Street extension. And then the lower tier, lots 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 will be serviced with the utilities that will be brought up the new or the reconstructed access road. So there's a haul road that goes down there now to the sewage treatment plant. That'll be brought up to subdivision standards. We'll run new utilities in there to service all those lots. Lot 5 is going to be kept by the borough as a, future municipal use. We showed a 5,000 square foot schematic building there. So that'll be, because of its being immediately adjacent to the sewage treatment plant, it makes sense that they'd have another parcel to keep there. So the drainage design and all the utility design is detailed for those construction of the infrastructure that the borough is doing. For the lots themselves, since this is a subdivision, we gave schematic building sizes and parking sizes that will work on the lot, that we think are going to be saleable to developers. And we've also highlighted some schematic stormwater detention areas and sized them accordingly. So, somebody comes in, looks at a lot, here's a building that could fit, could be slightly larger, slightly smaller. But they've got room there for enough parking and drainage, so you could find the right end user, for each particular lot. Then at that point, when they enter into the developer's agreement with the borough, they'd have to come up with a detailed engineered site plan. Go back through WPCA, engineering, police, everybody will get another shot at taking a look at the detailed plan for each lot. And then that would ultimately be what gets approved and actually constructed on the lot. So this is the subdivision, so the real purpose here is we're here to create these 12 lots. As obviously you can't really enter into a developer's agreement or actually begin the permitting on each individual lot until the lot exists. So that's the purpose of the application tonight. And certainly I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have on the engineering side. And these were, let me take a step back, he received a initial set of plans, like March 25th and March 29th, there was a revised set that came in. And then we went through zoning, Jim Stewart's review, police, fire, WPCA. So these newer plans, the April 25th plans, were revised to incorporate all of those comments that we got from the different staff review. So that's what you have before you. And there are still, as the mayor mentioned, there's some additional stipulations in Mr. Stewart's memo, conditions of approval of, each lot would have to come back for site plan approval, all the typical stuff that you'd see in a subdivision approval. Thank you. Thanks.
Is there anyone else? No, okay. Are there any questions or comments from the commission?
It's my understanding that, when Uniroyal, when Trevor was, the proprietorship of this, property, that a lot of the groundwater, surface water flowed into the Naugatuck River. Are those channels still there? Are they going to be permanently blocked? What is the path of surface water runoff?
So for the surface water runs generally from up towards Cherry Street down towards the river. There are a number of existing crossings, pipe crossings. We're going to utilize 3 of those existing ones to get the water across from the subdivision site out to the river. We also have currently there's a major storm drainage upgrade that the borough is doing up in Cherry Street area. The 60-inch pipe that's going to be carried down through the site and also daylight at one of those crossings that go under the river. So we won't have to directionally drill or bore any new crossings under the railroads. We're going to use what's existing, and obviously we need to negotiate. We've had initial discussions with the railroad on these leases, and
We have easements already.
we have easements in place, so it'll just need to be repurposed for storm drainage. But yeah, and anything that is found where they're doing excavation and development for the lots, any existing infrastructure would be abandoned in place and or removed. If it's something we're cutting down into, it'll be removed. If it's, there's obviously a lot of old pipes and water pipes and, all sorts of stuff out there. There were 30-something buildings out there. So as each lot gets developed, then the detailed site plans will identify, what they're gonna either leave in place, cap in place, or remove.
You mentioned a 60-inch storm sewer upgrade. Are any of the current passages underneath the rail bed capable of handling 60 inches?
Yeah, there is we're bringing it down to an existing 60-inch. There's an existing 60-inch crossing that we use.
Thank you.
Anyone have another question? Any questions from Zoom?
No,
Any from the audience? Yeah, okay. If there are no other questions, I will close the public hearing. And at the commission, if they would like to wait until June, or are you ready to? Anyone have preference? Anyone have any lingering concerns they want to review? Okay. If not, I'll entertain a motion to.
The second.
Thank you. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the subdivision application dated April 1st, 2024 for Naugatuck Industrial Park Phase.
Wait, can we start with the waiver? See the one right above it?
Oh, you want to do
I will
that?
make the motion that we approve the waiver of section 6 open space requirements as regards industrial park phase 3.
Is there a second to waive that?
I'll second.
Are there any questions? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Eight waivers. Next, we'll entertain a motion to approve the subdivision application dated April 1st, 2024 for Naugatuck Industrial Park Phase 3, a 12-lot industrial park subdivision located at 280 Elm Street, applicant Borough of Naugatuck, including the following. 1, plan set entitled Naugatuck Industrial Park Phase 3 subdivision plans, Borough of Naugatuck, dated March 25th, 2024, and revised April 26th, 2024. That's a set of new plans in front of you. 2, record subdivision map entitled Record Subdivision Map, subdivision of Lot 1B, record map, volume 44, page 50, prepared by the Borough of Naugatuck, 280 Elm Street, dated March 21st, 2024, and revised April 23rd, 2024. With the following following conditions. The record subdivision map needs to conform to the requirements of the subdivision regulation section 4.3, including A, section 4.3.8. Label proposed streets with the names Elm Street and Progress Boulevard. B, section 4.3.13, place sanitary sewer connection fee note on the plans. C, section 4.3.16, place planning commission condition note on plan. D, section 4.4.20, place the borough engineer approval note on plan. E, section 4.3.22, planning commission approval note on plan. 2, final utility sizing and main service location shall be determined by each respective utility. 3, each individual lot site plan shall be approved by the zoning commission. 4, final construction drawing shall be approved by the borough engineering department. 5, the road road paving cross-section shall be modified to meet the current industrial park subdivision requirements, including 6 inches of asphalt. 6, all work shall follow the sewer chip permit and soil management plan for the property. 7, the Borough of Naugatuck shall obtain all required OSTA approvals for the project. 8, the borough shall comply with all WPCA conditions of approval. 9, the subdivision improvement bond from surety shall be provided by the contractor as part of the construction contract. And 10, the borough shall obtain a will serve letter from the Connecticut Water Company, which water is referred to. Any comments? Anyone care to make that a motion?
I will make the motion as directed.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh. Thank you for making all that information available. I want to thank you for making all those remediation reports.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it took me a week to read them.
I told you 3 times.
I didn't want to say all that.
Moving back to our agenda, new business item B. A commission discussion and decision regarding a referral from the zoning commission to amend the Naugatuck zoning regulations to add both a residential treatment facilities was both the allowed use in the B1 zone with a special permit. Also add a definition for residential treatment facilities and add a parking standard for residential treatment facilities. Applicant Heritage Downtown LLC.
That's all right.
Can I get agreement to compensate for this?
Okay, my paperwork this time. Evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Nupp. I'm an attorney with an office at 135 Broad Street in Milford, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Heritage Downtown LLC, which is the owner of the property outside the window at 58 Maple Street. It's in the B1 zone, and it's been approved actually with an attractive, fairly new building. It currently features Trinity Health, My Eye Doctor, and the balance of the building on the first and second floors, approximately 16,000 square feet, are vacant and have been vacant since its construction several years ago. There are two applications under consideration. The first is behind tab 1 in the book that I handed to you. By the way, I just for the record, I provided 3 documents to you. One is the booklet with 9 different tabs. The second is a copy of our PowerPoint presentation. And the third is the revised site plan. And the revision as to the site plan as compared to what we originally submitted is very, very minor. And I'll describe that in a minute. It's just to add a small outdoor area. So 2 applications are before you. The first one is behind tab 1. This is an application to amend the Naugatuck zoning regulations to add residential treatment facilities as a special permit use in the B1 zone. Also to add a definition of residential treatment facilities, and 3, to add a parking standard for those types of facilities. The second application behind tab 2 is a special permit application to locate a residential treatment facility within the existing building at 58 Maple. The proposed use will be located entirely within the existing building and no expansion of the building is proposed, with the small exception I just mentioned of the creation of a fenced outdoor area for some of our patients. With me this evening are the owners of 58 Maple, Rob Orris and John Lombard. Rob and John purchased the property in 2017 after an RFP process from the Borough of Naugatuck, and they have made a substantial investment in the property since that time, and we'll discuss that a bit more in a second. We also have representatives of our tenant, Haven Health Management. We have Cheyenne Riker, who's corporate counsel for Haven, and Jack Maroney, who's a managing partner with Haven. Haven has approximately 20 facilities in Massachusetts, New York, Florida, New Jersey, and other states. They have provided patients with thousands of patients with addiction and mental health relief, and we're going to be hearing more from Cheyenne and Jack. We'll talk a little bit about the property and my clients. As I mentioned, they acquired the property in 2017 from the Borough of Naugatuck. It consists of approximately 2.5 acres. As I mentioned, we're in the B1 zone. Heritage Downtown acquired the property after an RFP process, and there was minimal interest from any other developers in the property. But as you may know, Rob Orris grew up here in Naugatuck. He was born and raised here and has felt a commitment to the borough and wanted to play at least a small role in helping its revitalization. So they closed on the property on March 29th of 2017. And initially it was intended that St. Mary's, or what is now Trinity, would occupy most or all of the 30,000 square foot building. But when St. Mary's was absorbed by Trinity, their demands were reduced to only 15,000 square feet. So they have tried diligently to lease the balance of the sites for all that time, and they have been unable to do so. They tried to work with the borough to phase the construction of the project, and the borough indicated that it was their specific preference that the entirety of the building be constructed. So as a result, they have this vacant space. Also, my clients work closely with the borough in terms of the appearance of the building, wanting true brick and some other landscaping and other features. And as a result, you have a very, very beautiful building that was also very expensive to build. So all in, my clients have invested $6 million in this property, and it is half empty. They never received any form of tax abatements, and they have tried diligently to lease the balance of the property or the balance of the building with no response other than Haven. So why is that relevant? Well, it's important for you to know that they have a true commitment to the borough. As I mentioned, Rob grew up here. He's committed to the borough. They have the best interests of the borough at heart. In particular, not only will this add a new, very necessary tenant to the building, but also Haven will be employing between 60 and 80 people. And it's a large number because they will be operating in 3 shifts. As you'll hear during the presentation, the patients are never without supervision, never without medical staff. And so you have a very robust addition of employment of, good paying jobs here in the middle of Naugatuck. And that's relevant when consideration of the regulation. So let's talk a little bit about that regulation. So that's behind tab 1. So the first is the definition of what is a residential treatment facility. And the words that we used in the definition come from the state regulations. And the state regulations I've included, I think in tabs 5 and 6. So these are not our choice of words, it's the choice of the Connecticut State authority in terms of how these terms are used. So I don't, we may view some of these as sort of out of date, but again, they're not by our choice. So the definition is an institution licensed by the State Department of Health for care or treatment of substance abusive or dependent purposes and or mental health day treatment facility, inpatient treatment facility, and psychiatric outpatient clinic for adults. So let's break that down a little bit. First, it's an institution licensed by the State Department of Health. And this is a really important component. Assuming that our applications are approved by the borough, by this commission, or in your advisory capacity, and by the zoning commission, we're not done. Haven has to go to the Department of Health, and they have to make an application for certificate of need. And that's a very important and rigorous and painstaking process that Haven will have to go through once we go through the process here with the borough. And so what I've done is behind tab 3 is I provided the certificate of need guidebook. This is on the state website, and you don't need to look at every page, and but I think it was important to understand that the very rigorous process that the state will force Haven to go through in order to get the project approved or get their use approved. Most important, however, is in that handout on page 22. It says how to apply for a CON. It says application analysis. It says broadly, analysts will assess whether there's a clear public need for the project and whether it's financially feasible. So if you look at those 12 criteria that they look at, many of them refer to need. For instance, number 3 says whether there's a clear public need for the facility or services proposed. Number 5, whether the applicant has satisfactorily demonstrated how the proposal will improve quality, accessibility, and cost effectiveness of healthcare delivery in the region. Number 7, whether the applicant has satisfactorily identified the population to be served and that there's an unmet need for those services. And 9, whether the applicant has satisfactorily demonstrated that the proposal will not result in unnecessary duplication of services or facilities in the area. And we are very confident that there is a need. I think we all know sort of intuitively that there is an important need, but nonetheless, I provided behind tab 4, the Naugatuck Valley Community Health Improvement Plan 2022 to 2024. So it's current and applies to the Borough of Naugatuck. And it's, I don't know who the primary authors, but the cover letter signed by Jessica Christie from the Naugatuck Valley Health District and Patrick Charmel, who's the president and CEO of Griffin Health Services. So what are some of their findings on the issue of need? On page 9, the valley continues to experience high rates of substance abuse among residents. The opioid crisis persists in the valley, and although this is a statewide and national issue, the valley continues to lose individuals due to fatal overdose and experience both high non-fatal overdose and substance use disorder rates. On page 11, it indicates that the focus areas for the 2022-2024 CHIP are 1, mental health, and 2, substance use and misuse. And then on page 16, talks about priority area number 2, substance use. According to the 2022 Valley Community Index, overdoses remain one of the 5 causes of premature deaths from 2015 to 2021. The number of fatal overdoses caused by opioids in the valley has more than tripled since 2014. Non-fatal overdoses are also a major concern in the valley. So that's why we're confident that once Haven makes its application to the Department of Health, it will determine that there is in fact a need. And I think, speaking personally, I know 4 individuals of my general vintage, all of whom have needed this type of service. 2 were in very major car accidents, were prescribed opioids and needed very serious help getting off of them. And then there's 2 others with different circumstances. But it's important to understand that this facility is designed to treat people who are our friends, our neighbors, maybe our family members, members of our community, our acquaintances. These are people that we know and desperately need help, and that's what Haven seeks to do. So for the balance of the regulation amendment, I just described what it is in terms of, it's a institution licensed by the Department of Health, and it's for substance abuse of independent persons, as defined in 19A-495-570 of the Connecticut State Regulations. I've included that at tab 5, and also a mental health day treatment facility at tab 6. I want to be very clear, however. This is a fully residential facility, 24 hours, 7 days a week, fully residential. People arrive here by means of a family member or a member of the Haven staff, and they leave only by a Haven staff member or by a family member. They do not leave the facility otherwise. So because of the way the CON process works with the states, we are required to get a license for a mental health day treatment facility, but none of that, but what we normally would think of a day treatment facility is not what Haven is proposing. And we can get into the details if you want, or we can tweak the language if you want, but I want to be very clear that this is a fully residential 24-hour-a-day facility where our patients are not coming and going. They enter for treatment for a period of time, 30 days, maybe more, we'll hear more about that, and then they leave only under the care of a staff member or a loved one. So that's what our facility is. Our application proposes to be permitted in the B1 zone by special permit, provided the parcel abuts an industrial district 1 zone, and it does, and it's on a parcel not less than 2 acres. And 58 Maple complies with both of those requirements. So the last part of the proposed amendment is the same parking standard as a hospital, convalescent home, and sanitarium, which is 1 space for every 3 beds. On the plans I just handed out, there is a parking table, and we have a surplus of 20 parking spaces when you apply those different requirements. Now, in terms of why I gave you a revised site plan, the only addition is on the rear of the building. There is a new exit that would open out into a small outdoor area that's completely fenced. That fenced area cannot be accessed from the outside. It can only be accessed from inside the facility. And that is for those patients who are in resident who frankly decide they need to have a cigarette. It's an opportunity for them to leave the building, have a cigarette, and come back in. But again, always under the supervision of the staff. So the last thing is, before I ask Cheyenne and Jack to speak, is we all know that zoning regulates the use and not the user. And as I'll discuss, we satisfy the criteria for both applications for the proposed use. But this is a bit different because Haven cannot transfer its ownership without another approval by the Department of Health. And that's important. So as you listen to Cheyenne and Jack, you say, wow, these guys sound great. They really have this down. They have great experience. They know what they're doing. They're a real commitment to their patients. But what if 5 years from now they decide to leave? They can't. They can't without the approval from the Department of Health to make sure that another fully qualified entity were to take its place. Now, they don't have a track record of selling, but it's a logical question that you all may ask as you listen to them. So I wanted to make sure that as you listen to them, know that they are going to be the entity that's here, that this is not something where, you're some unexpected user can come along, whether it's 6 months or 6 years from now. It's the same commitments that Haven will demonstrate. So let me turn it over to first Cheyenne Riker, who is corporate counsel for Haven, and then we'll hear from Jack.
Thanks, John. Good evening. Thank you for your time. Appreciate your service. As John mentioned, my name is Cheyenne Riker. I'm General Counsel for Haven Health Management. What I'd like to do is kind of give you a feel for who we are as a company, what we do, give you a feel for some of our locations. We'll go through the slides and you'll get a feel for what kind of facilities we operate. Talk a little bit about the need, and then Dr. Jack Maroney, who's a member in the company referred to as on the front, the Haven of Connecticut, which would be the company that would operate this location. He's a member and a manager of that company, has a strong background in substance use disorder treatment, and is certainly well qualified to talk about what he'll talk about, which relates to our clinical operations and our treatment modalities. So Haven Health Management is a healthcare, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what's on the slides, but you all know how to read obviously, and so I'm just going to talk to you about kind of who we are as a company. We are definitely behavioral health experts. We've been in this industry for about 15 years or so. When I get to the companies that we currently operate, you'll get a better feel for the types of facilities that we operate. But we specialize in managing behavioral health care facilities that we own. So all of our back end work, for example, legal, marketing, human resources, all those things are undertaken in our location in Florida. What we've learned is that by doing all the back end work in Florida at our headquarters, the local work in terms of treating patients and focusing on what's in the patient's best interest can be done here. And that keeps all the HR away from what's most important, which is the outcomes that we desire for our patients. So we're a healthcare management company that manages the back end work so that our local facilities can do what's in our patient's best interest. We currently offer services in Indiana, Florida, New Jersey, Arkansas, Massachusetts. We're also in New York. We're working on a new location in Tulsa. And we're working on another location in Arizona, in Green Valley. Those are 1.5-year projected goals. The Tulsa project is going to be a while. The Arizona project is going to be a while, but those are some of the facilities and states that we operate in. All our facilities are accredited by the Joint Commission, which is known as the gold standard in accreditation. In some states you have to have it, in others you don't, but we are accredited at every single location where we operate. We're certainly licensed and certified where it's required in every state. Every state requires some sort of licensing and or accreditation. Next slide, please. So now I'll get into a little bit about our facilities themselves. This is the Haven Detox. This is actually our very first detox level of care. And we refer to levels of care in our industry, detox being one of the highest levels of care. So I'm going to talk a little bit about levels of care so you have a feel for what you're going to get for you to approve this use, and assuming we get the certificate of need. So the highest level of care is the hospital. So if somebody's in such a position in their process, in their recovery process, that they come in and they say, you know, the alternative is if I don't get some sort of medication or medical assisted treatment, then I need a hospital. That's what's called a 4.0 level of care under the American Society of Addiction Medicine criteria. That's not what we will have here. The next level down is what's called a 3.7 level of care. That's the detox. So that level of care is somebody that comes in, and what we do at that level is somebody comes in, they don't need a hospital, so they're not so bad that they need a hospital, but they do need some sort of medication tapering. So what we do is they come in, we do a taper, and Dr. Maroney can talk a little bit more about that once he's up here, but we taper them down into a position where they're more comfortable to move forward in their recovery through therapy and other methods. That's what we would do here. And as John mentioned, all patients are transported to and from the facility. No one leaves on foot, no one arrives on foot. And for the most part, folks that are at that level of care aren't in a position to arrive or leave on foot anyway. The next level down is 3.5, which is residential. That's the same thing that you would expect. It's just the next level down. So once somebody has been tapered off the medication or the drug that they've, chosen, then they'll go down to a residential level of care, and that's where they start to get a feel for what recovery is about. They're no longer in a medical position medically to where they have to have medication to take them down. And now they can start working on their recovery and actively working, some sort of recovery program, whether it's through their therapist or, Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, or whatever the case may be. That's where they start that journey. Those are the two levels of care that we would expect to see here. You also have some lower levels referred to as partial hospitalization, intensive outpatient and outpatient care. Those are the ones where you go, it's all outpatient. You go to the facility every day and you leave the facility every day. That's not what we're offering here. We're only offering detox and residential care. So the Haven, by way of background, this was our very first detox and residential. So this is the type of facility that we operate. This is our first one. It was it's in West Palm Beach, Florida. And that's a detox program. Again, this is gated. We don't have the benefit of gates out here. So this is a type of campus setting. You have a building here and a building here. And the patients are afforded the opportunity to kind of move throughout the facility or the campus setting, which is really nice. It's not a required component, but it is nice for them to be able to get outside. Next slide. This is what our facilities generally look like. So the benefit of having this location is the landlords have done a fantastic job of putting it together and maintaining it over the last several years. So it already looks kind of generally in line with what we need. But what we typically do is we start with a shell of some sort and we renovate the entire thing. We put brand new flooring, new paint, which I suspect we'll need there, do new paint to match our typical color scheme. And I'm telling you about this aspect of what we do, because what we found in the research has shown clearly that patients who have a nice place to live are more focused on their recovery. They don't have to worry about leaks. They don't have to worry about lighting. They don't have to worry about poor flooring. Things are organized and they have a better experience and they're more able to focus on what's in their own best interest rather than concerning themselves with the facilities they're in. So we think it's really good to have good quality facilities. And so we'll do all these things to the extent it needs it in this building next door so that our patients get the best experience. Go to the next slide. This is our second detox. This is the one that I have the most history and experience with. I personally am from Indiana, Southern Indiana. And this is Indiana Center for Recovery, Bloomington. So Indiana Center for Recovery has several locations. This is our first detox level of care. There, we also offer outpatient services. So this location has about 6 buildings in total. We have the detox, which is something like what you would see down here. Then we also have a residential apartment building. It has about 40 units or so. And it's a campus setting. So in one building, we have a full court basketball. We have a bowling alley, we have an arcade. We have a whole range of amenities that allow our patients an opportunity to kind of think about things more positive and to do things without the use of drugs and alcohol that are fun. They get to see what life's like without having to use drugs and alcohol, but still be able to enjoy themselves. I wish I had pictures of the bowling alley and the basketball court, but we all know what those things look like. We also always have kind of a really nice dining area for our patients. This is a small one. This is actually in the detox in Bloomington. So typically speaking, Bloomington or detox buildings are a little smaller because you don't have as many patients. They typically go out to residential pretty quickly, which leads me to a good point, which is detox level of care typically ranges from 4 to 7 days. After that 4 to 7 days is complete, then they'll stay in the residential program anywhere from, I would say, 30 days to 60 days.
We're from 14 to 25.
Okay, so Dr. Moreau, I can talk to you more about the details there. We'll go to the next slide. This is the Haven, New England. This is up in Worcester, Mass. Same program as what we have in Bloomington, a little bit different setting. Certainly different state, obviously, but that program offers the same services, detox, residential, and outpatient. Same interior design concepts to ensure that our patients get the best experience. Always have snacks available so that folks can kind of really enjoy themselves, not have to worry about anything but focusing on their recovery. This one, and I'm particularly proud of, this is Indiana Center for Recovery, Mishawaka, South Bend. So this is a 165,000 square foot hospital that we actually, this is our first foray into the highest level of care, which is that 4.0 I referred to earlier. So the 4.0 level of care is what is, in Indiana, we refer to that as the psychiatric unit. So that's somebody that is a danger to himself or others. And we have experts on staff that monitor those folks until they have reached the point where they can step down to the detox level of care. From there, they can step down to the detox, and then in that same building, 165,000 square feet, so it's a pretty good sized building. They'll step down to the detox and then residential. And at that location, we also offer mental health services, which is a separate service. But often we find mental health and addictions co-occurring. So we refer to them as co-occurring morbidities. And we can treat both of those under the same roof under this model. So this is a really exciting project as well. And that one, that's been licensed for about three years or so now. Same thing, you can expect the same general style of interior changes to ensure that the patients get the best experience. What we try and do is create a home environment for folks, because, you know, at the end of the day, we don't want to replicate the home environment because the folks have come from a pretty tough home in a lot of cases, but we want to make them feel like they are a place where they're welcome and they're cared for. And so what we do is we just try and make sure that the decorations are in order. Everything on the interior of the building is nothing short of impeccable. We hire, so you see here, we say, I don't know if you can read it from here, but it says quality dining. All of our facilities have a full-time chef. And then we have 2 to 3 sous chefs alongside them to ensure that our folks get the best in dietary. Every person has a dietary plan to ensure that they get the food they need to meet their medical needs. So this is what we would typically do. We typically develop, design, and construct our own properties. Fortunately, the landlords do a fantastic job of keeping this one up, and we're really hoping to make this happen here in Naugatuck. In fact, you know, I've never been to Naugatuck. I haven't spent much time in Connecticut, to be honest, but I think it would be wonderful for our patients to be able to look out their windows and see what you folks are able to see right here. We don't, in Indiana, we don't get this, and none of our facilities have this type of view. And I think it would be really serene for our patients to be able to see what you get a chance to look at every day. I'll go with that. So this is, I think you actually have a copy of this in your packet. This is just generally, I think everybody here is familiar enough with this site to know what we're looking at. But there is an addition. Is it?
Not on that plan.
Oh, it's not on this one. Got it.
I can bring it up if we need to, but.
Oh, it's no worry. I just, it was on the slide. So this is kind of generally what we'll expect to see. Same thing you can see right from your window. Move to the next one, please. So what we're hoping to accomplish is this is the first floor. And we'll start with, there'll be 9 residential beds. All these beds are numbered. They all have, some have 2 beds, some have 1 bed. Looks like all the ones on this floor have 1 bed. We always do a laundry. We do a lobby and waiting room, and then we have a number of therapist office. Common areas are nice for patients to be able to interact with each other, share their common experience. We found that and the research shows that kind of an open milieu area for patients to be able to communicate openly with one another has been very helpful for their recovery. Then, of course, we do the dining area with the kitchen next to it. We'll go to the next slide, please. And then, of course, on the second floor, that is almost purely residential with nurses stations scattered throughout. And that Dr. Jack Murray will talk to you a little bit about the need for these services. Appreciate your time. I'm available for questions. I didn't give a perfect presentation, but I know that you'll have questions. And I'm happy to answer it.
I just, I can redirect the presentation just a little bit.
Sure.
The topic on the table right now is the change to the zoning regulations and the wording. And if you could defer the physical operation aspect of discussion to the next topic, that would be preferred. But I do have a couple of questions. In the facilities that you're operating today, sorry, not that. Can you identify the need in this community for this change in the regulations? And whether or not I guess the ancillary question is the facility intended to be a regional facility rather than a community facility?
So
It's not you, one of the other.
I'll answer the second one, first, and then someone else can answer the first. So do we prefer to have locals say to themselves, I'm ready to change, and I'm ready to make an effort to get into recovery? Yes. Will we take patients from Milford or New Haven? Of course, no question. In fact, we'll bring them to our front door. As far as the local need, Dr. Jack, John?
Sure, and by the way, Mr. Chairman, the reason for Jack's testimony is because there's also a special permit application for you as well, so we want to give you the full picture, but we're happy to do the presentation however you prefer. You know, I went on a little bit of length about the issue of need and how, you know, you all may approve this, the zoning commission may approve it, but at the end of the day, if we don't demonstrate the need in the community, then the Department of Health won't give us the required certificate. Nevertheless, we are very confident that there is a need, and I think, you know, you didn't need, this is why I went through this in some length with the CHIP, which is the Community Health Program, because they have demonstrated, based upon their research, there's a true need, not only in the nation and the state, but also particularly in the valley. So, I mean, and I will talk more a little bit about the criteria for a regulation amendment and special permit, but I think that's what we're relying upon. And by the way, I only gave you a sort of cursory summary of that report, but I would encourage you to, you know, look at it in greater detail. And I think you will come away with that, knowing that there is a true need. And I would be happy to have Jack provide any anecdotal as well as data that he would have available, if you'd like to hear from him.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jack Maloney. I am not a physician, a therapist, and in many instances, I'd probably ask you to tell me what it is that you want to hear. But, you know, in terms of need, I think I could probably go around the table and probably everybody would know someone that could use substance use disorder service. Just briefly, I'm a person in long-term recovery. This is why I'm here. It's the passion for me. I was an inner city kid. I'm a grandfather of four. My oldest is full adjustment counselor. And I think without early intervention that was made by family on my behalf, I wouldn't be here now. My grandkids would not have the same opportunities they have today. And so I can't say how important these services are. Whether we have in our certificate of need application identified several different areas which speak to that. I don't have those demographics in those specifics here, but if that's something that was absolutely needed, those could be provided. And I think I'm a Massachusetts resident, don't hold that against me. But you know, wherever I go, and I've traveled across the country and into other countries, and the need for substance use disorder services has always been at the top of everyone's lips. And so, can I give you the exact details, the numbers and all of that at this moment? No. But I can say from the bottom of my heart, I haven't been in the community yet where there hasn't been a need for substance use disorder services. But I would like to open it up for a little bit of dialogue and conversation. Is there anything particular that you would like to know about what we propose?
Doctor, I'm Elliot Pollock, I'm counsel for the commission. What, you don't supply furnish outpatient services, strictly inpatient facility.
This will be a residential 24-hour
So,
inpatient facility.
what data do you have or can you make available to the commission about the need for residential inpatient treatment in this community? Because the zoning regulation should reflect community needs and to some degree, you know.
I mean, in the Valley report, which we didn't, kind of focus on that. One of the accidental death is, I think it's around 2,400 in the Valley area. That's equal to all the deaths from cancer and heart disease.
But since there are two significant sources of treatment, outpatient and inpatient, inpatient is for people, if I take it from Mr. Neff's presentation, or council's, are more ill than people who get outpatient services. So to what degree do people who live in Naugatuck seek residential substance abuse treatment now out of the community? To any degree, do you have any data concerning that particular issue?
We do have that, it's just not at my fingertips.
But it's available and you're willing to share it?
It is available, and we would be willing to share that.
We haven't had a chance to read the report that Mr. Nuck referred to, but are there data in that report that would have be able to answer those sorts of questions?
Yeah, I want to be very clear. So I understand that you have a concern whether Naugatuck residents will be going to this facility. Almost certainly, 100%. Will it be inhabited entirely by Naugatuck residents? Well, no, of course not. But I don't know of very many facilities other than a municipal facility that services only those people within a particular municipality. What we've indicated, and based upon the CHIP, is that there is a true need within the Naugatuck River Valley. So we would anticipate that as these folks would be the primary patients. But as Cheyenne has pointed out, is that if someone wants to utilize this facility from elsewhere in the state, they certainly have the ability to do that. The point is that you have no provision in your regulations now for this type of facility. And that's really critical under the Fair Housing Act, the American with Disabilities Act. This use does not exist in your regulations. That's why we're making the application to create the use, in this case, in the B1 zone. There is no accommodation whatsoever. So we could have apartments in that building. In fact, that's how a portion of that building was first approved. That's a residential use. This is a residential use for people who are disabled. And you have no provision in your regulations for that. So, I guess we can gather together what other information you'd like as to whether or not how many specific Naugatuck residents historically have needed this type of facility, although I don't know that's relevant under the criteria that we're going to be analyzing the regulation amendment and the special permit.
So hypothetically, if no Naugatuck residents currently or in the past have sought residential substance abuse treatment, that would not be relevant at all to this planning commission's rule?
No, I don't think so. Again, there is a requirement that you make adequate provision for this type of facility under the ADA and under the Fair Housing Act. So I think it would be quite a surprise if no Naugatuck residents were able to utilize this facility. But I sense that there is a undercurrent in the question that for some reason this is an unwelcome use. So I guess I don't understand. It's like, so we have a medical office building there currently. It's used for a walk-in clinic. I think they have a rotating cardiac or orthopedic. I don't know that anyone asked, gee, does anyone need a doctor before that was approved? This is really no different. In fact, this is even a lower standard. It is no different. They are providing a needed medical treatment, the same way as the rest of that facility does, same way as the ophthalmologist provides a necessary medical treatment or health related service. This is no different. And I don't think those questions were asked. Gee, how many people in Naugatuck need eyeglasses? That question wasn't asked. It's so, I guess I don't understand the premise of the question.
You amend the zoning regulations, does there not have to be some communal need for that use in the community?
What the statutes and the case law say, and I'm sure Attorney Pollock knows this well, is that you have to do several things. On a regulation amendment or a zone change amendment, which are both legislative acts, you have to, one, quote, consider the plan of conservation development. There is nothing in your plan of conservation development that is related to this use. And it must be, and this is from statute, it must be consistent with your comprehensive plan. Your comprehensive plan is not the plan of conservation development. Your comprehensive plan is your zoning map and your regulations. And behind tab 7, I gave you other uses that are already permitted in the B1 zone. They're very similar to this type of use. So there's nothing inconsistent with our proposed use with other uses that are currently permitted in the B1 zone. And at the end of the day, I think what this is what Attorney Pollock is getting at, is that you also find cases that say, yes, it has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan, but at the end of the day, it has to be in the best interest of the community. I assume that's what you're getting at, Attorney Pollock. And I would tell you, well, this is in the best interest of the community. You are taking a vacant building or a large portion of vacant building, which my clients have spent many millions of dollars to construct and to maintain. You are bringing a very needed facility and type of service to those in the Naugatuck and the Greater Valley region. You are bringing a number of 60 to 80 employees who will be coming to the site every day and who can frequent your shops, your restaurants, your gas stations, wherever it is. It's a really wonderful employment opportunity. So I think those three things speak very highly to the fact that this is consistent with your comprehensive plan and it's in the best interest of the Borough of Naugatuck.
Why Naugatuck?
What's that?
Why Naugatuck? Why not Prospects, Beacon Falls, Middlebury?
It doesn't matter. And by the way, if they don't have a facility or they don't have a regulation that allows with this use, then they also would be subject to the Fair Housing Act, the American Disabilities Act. The fact is, we have, as I said, Rob and John are very committed to the Borough of Naugatuck. And again, I get the sense that there is an undercurrent in that question. This is
Well, you're not.
A wonderful-
Just so
it's
you
a-
know, you're
it's a
not selling it to me. That's why I.
but it's a wonderful medical use. It's frankly no different, as I said, what Trinity Hospital is providing, treatment to people who need help. This is just a different type of help that they need, and it's provided in an intensive setting where people come and stay for a number of weeks, and then they leave only under the care of a loved one or only under the care of a staff person. If I were any other surrounding town, I'd say, gee, that would be great. Because if I were a Naugatuck resident and needed to bring a loved one here, it'd be nice to have them close, frankly.
Is there gonna be some kind of standard where it says Naugatuck residents will get a better opportunity to be here than, say, a Waterbury or?
I don't think that's the case, but the doctor, or actually, Jack.
Well, I mean, most of it is really kind of medical necessity. And the medical necessity will oftentimes dictate, like, if there's 3 people in the waiting room, we're gonna triage who's the most important person because who's the sickest and all of that. I mean, and so to answer that question, clinically, that would probably be a I think we'd want to treat the one that's the sickest, help mitigate those symptoms as quick as possible. The only thing I can really say is that if you really look at the United States in general, we know, statistics show that 13% of the population has a substance use disorder. And so out of that 13%, we can do a demographic analysis of, pick the mileage, 20 miles around in a circle and stuff like that, and actually provide the data you're looking for. I mean, data is data. Ellie, have,
But I think we need to focus on the fact this is a residential facility. And in that regard, you take, are you a Title 19 provider? Do you take Medicaid patients as well as private pay patients?
the state will mandate us to take everybody.
So you would accept that as a condition of approval, I take it. So, so the issue is, wouldn't it be reasonable, you're gonna have data for the Department of Health?
Okay.
Right, so for instance, Elliot, on page 8 of the chip, there is a breakout by town of all the towns in the Naugatuck Valley.
Page 8?
Page 8,
Which had
behind tab
that's fine.
4. So you have mental illness. 728 Naugatuck residents per 10,000 residents. 172 is substance abuse out of 10,000, higher than some, lower than Derby and Ansonia. 175 for alcohol abuse as compared to, you can see the other numbers. So there is a demonstrated need for this type of facility in the borough of Naugatuck.
Well, these are hospital admissions, presumably to the emergency room or some other fashion.
Right,
You're talking about
so as Cheyenne indicated, they may need level 4, which is the highest level of care, but then they need someplace to go after that.
If you have this data, I think, my sense is that you were prepared to file a certificate of need application, and then change course and came in for zoning approvals. So you must have data with regard to need that you were prepared to present. We could generate that data reasonably quickly with regard to need in both the community of Naugatuck as well as the surrounding area.
And I think that is the role of the Department of Health.
So you're saying the zoning authorities in Naugatuck are not entitled to see information about need for this facility?
I think we have demonstrated that there is a need. I think we've demonstrated that it is the primary component of the Department of Health's inquiry. 5 out of the 12 criteria all are related to need. I don't think that Haven and my clients would be here this evening going through this effort if there wasn't a demonstrated need, if there wasn't a known need to provide this type of service. And under the criteria that we're discussing, a regulation amendment and a special permit, there is nothing that says, prove that you need this. There's no other land use where you have to demonstrate need. I want to put a McDonald's on the corner. Would people need a hamburger? I want a Walmart. Do people need groceries and, sweatshirts and auto products? Well, yeah, they do. Well, let them go to Seymour. There's no other use in zoning where you'd be asking these questions.
If I may. And I'm not gonna talk about need because it's not a question of need. The questions I hear is about the degree of need. But we're being presented with a very specific company.
Yeah.
Haven. All right. So what I would like to see is their success rate measured 6 months after the clients have left and a comparison to the rest of the industry. Do you have that data?
We can put that data together.
Without that, how do I know we're not buying a pig in a poke?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I provided the CON handout and I provided the state
I'm quite
regulations.
familiar with certificate of needs. That's irrelevant to my question.
Well,
Certificates of needs came to being to control healthcare costs. So if I was a clever doctor and wanted my own ultrasound machine or CAT scanner, I had to get a certificate of need proving that there was sufficient need in the area to justify another unit because they cost 1.4 million. And I could be taking monies away from a hospital that their imaging department was their primary source of funds because they were forced to take indigent people who could not pay. So we're not talking about certificate of need. Don't blow smoke.
If you read
Will
the
you provide
regulations, there's an
efficacy rates for Haven? Yes or no?
So, and I'll say we can't provide that, but here's one of the big problems that is in our industry, unfortunately. What is success?
How many people revert to substance abuse after 6 months, after 12 months?
So
Very simple.
it's not as simple as you think. So what you're asking me is, how many people, after they successfully graduate from a program, get readmitted to another facility over a certain period of time? And are those rates better than other facilities, correct?
That's what I'm asking.
Now, the unfortunate thing is there's not another facility that publishes that. So I can give you numbers and say, this is the way it goes, but you're gonna not compare an apple to an apple. You may compare an apple to an orange. Unfortunately, our industry in behavioral health in general doesn't have statistical outcomes that mimic exactly what you're looking for. It just doesn't happen. Everybody is an individual.
They're attempting to do it all the time, and I would like to see your attempts, sir.
If Jack says we'll attempt it, but again, it's not a criterion under Connecticut law or a regulation amendment or a special permit to demonstrate their efficacy.
And so I'd probably ask one thing back. Do you have a threshold that if we meet, it satisfies the conditions? So it's kind of a two-way street.
Right.
We can say we're 75% successful, and you say that's not good enough. No, I can say there's 100 people around the corner that need treatment, and you say that's not good enough. There should be some kind of quid pro quo that if we're gonna go back and do this, what's acceptable to you guys to say, okay, you're right, this works.
And what Jack is getting at is that it becomes an arbitrary standard. Unless we can tell you it's 100%, he's right. The response will be, well, that's not high enough. Well,
That's not what I asked, though.
okay,
What I asked
but I
is
guess what I'm trying to ask is,
others-
why is the question being
Comparison
asked?
with others in the same industry. I don't want somebody, I would love to have more manufacturing in town. Don't think it's gonna happen, but I'd love to have it. I don't want somebody building steam engine. I want something better than that. What I'm not hearing is we are leading the industry. I'm not hearing nothing close to that. What I'm hearing is we have a very intelligent man spent talking about how you're going to make the buildings look good. Nothing. What's the purpose of this?
Frankly,
Treatment.
that was the rest of the PowerPoint that we didn't get to. And if you want to hear about that, go ahead.
So, I mean, I can go and talk about CBT, DBT, outcomes and all of that. I can go on. And I can say to you that we are better than the industry standard, but what does that mean? I can go back and write a paper that says this is what our outcomes are. 56% better than organization C. What does that mean? And you know, so I'm in front of you as a person who's dedicated their life to treatment, improvement in treatment and outcomes. So 100%, I love what you're saying. But the reality of the industry is I can make up any statistic and say, this person's left here, 2 years later, they've done well. I'm a person, 35 years later, I've done well. But I'm just one person. And everybody is an individual, and it doesn't work that way. If I could reach in, turn a key and change somebody's life direction, I would do that. We don't have the answers yet. The brain is the most complicated organ in the entire universe. We're not there yet. So I'd be lying to you if I said, I know what I'm talking about. Because if I was a physician, I'd still be practicing like all physicians do. Because we haven't got to the heart of the matter to figure out poverty, all the adverse childhood experiences that kind of come in and coalesce and make a person walk through that door. There's a lot to be said, but we have to start somewhere and you have to try. That's about all I can really add to this, other than my 35 years of scratching my head, trying every single possible experiment, what works, what doesn't work. Everybody is different. Everybody is different. But if we don't give somebody an opportunity to turn their life around, then what have we done? What have we done? What have we done as a society? What have we done as a community? I mean, there's no secrets to getting better. Family, work, community, all of that, it's the same stuff. And why not start here? Why not? How can it hurt? You got space, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. And yet, I gotta provide a statistic that I really can't provide.
I think the fact that Haven is being presented as the operator, oh, Haven is not mentioned in the special permit application. The property owner is, do I have that correct?
Yeah.
So,
That's correct.
so is there a reason, since special permit, Haven is being presented as the special permit holder, anticipated special permit holder?
Well, it will be the tenants. I mean, the special permit runs with the land. And so the special permit will be recorded under the name of the property owner and we can certainly add Haven as an applicant.
Well, they're being presented as the intended occupant and
Yes,
operator,
yes,
correct?
yes.
So that's I suppose that's the reason why you have questions about Haven, because in fact, the gentleman spent time explaining what Haven was and how, its business has progressed and how successful they've been. So the logical question then is, well, tell us about it.
Right, and by the way, there's more in the PowerPoint that we didn't get to because we started talking about the regulation. And Jack, as I said, would be happy to go through it. You can read it at your leisure, but he talks about some of the cutting edge things that they're doing. Not only in terms of substance abuse treatment, but they have a special program for former military and police officers and the the harrowing things that they've gone through and how those folks are treated. This is a company that's dedicated to, helping those in need, in the entire spectrum of, mental health.
But just kind of go back to my question, the other gentleman just said, well, there's a building that's available, so we'll take it. Like, I think I need more of a reason other than there's an available building here, like, just to fill a place, that's why we have to take this. I mean, I don't know, I'd like you to sell it and just say why, and you're not really doing it.
Well,
Why would you come to Naugatuck? And the other gentleman said that it's beautiful to look at this. I look at this every day. It's not that nice. So I just don't understand.
I mean, so now what you're getting at is sort of the real estate component to any entity. Again, whether it's McDonald's, whether it's a deli, whether it's a barber shop or anything, it's like, okay, I see a need in the community. Whether it's the Naugatuck Valley or the Borough of Naugatuck or the state of Connecticut. What do I need for my facility? What do I need if I'm Costco? I need 25 acres and 2 traffic lights and, a place to put a stormwater detention pond. If I'm, a small deli, I need 2,000 square feet near where lots of people are working. If I'm Haven, I need a building approximately 16,000 square feet that can accommodate 23 bedrooms, a number of treatment facilities, and a common area. It exists. It exists. That's why. Why go build something when you have a vacant building, a really attractive vacant building that can serve that need?
Okay, so it's about a building. That's fine.
No,
This is business, so that's fine. That's honest. It's about a
I
building.
mean, Haven could say, we're gonna acquire a acre and a half someplace in Naugatuck and build a new building, but you'd be asking all the same questions. Show me the need. Well, the need exists. The only question is where it goes. where the facility that satisfies that need, where is that located? In this case, we have the perfect location for it.
I have concerns when it comes to the whole Haven, and refusal, or I don't know which way we're going with it, are you gonna give statistics or not? Because I know individuals have gone into treatment and have been told this is an 80% relapse rate. They're given all the breakdowns of what you're expecting with their program. I didn't see that in here, but again, we just got it, but I didn't see that in here. And Commissioner Clark was getting on that. Why Haven? Because I believe he said, once they're in, we're not getting rid of them. We can't.
Well,
get rid of
no,
them.
no,
We
so
can't
the-
change.
no,
it.
no, no, the whole point is,
So,
I mean, so there is an ongoing oversight by the Department of Health. It would be very easy for Haven to create its own definition of success. Because I think what Jack has said, there is no accepted definition of success. They could create their own arbitrary definition of success is someone leaves our facility and doesn't return to a similar facility for 30 days. Our success rate is 98%. Well, what if it's a year out, 2 years out, 10 years out? If no one's, so you can't really compare Haven versus others. What you can do is, I mean, if you want to flip through the rest of the PowerPoint about Haven, is look at the people who are doing this and know that you have the comfort that there are experts of the Department of Health who are also overseeing all this. And what I will always retreat to the following, it's not a zoning issue. It's not a zoning issue. Is it consistent with the comprehensive plan? And do we meet the special permit criteria? There's about a dozen special permit criteria. Size of the use in the lot, effect of the proposed use on POCD, what there is none. Traffic, none. Appearance of the neighborhood, topography, the building's already there. Parking and access, the building's there. Police and fire, not an issue, because we have no traffic and it's already been approved by the fire, no spill. Water supply, sewage, drainage. Will be before WPCA, but drainage and sewer supply are existing. Availability of recreation area, we're providing that, the outdoor area. Lighting, it exists. Height location of buildings in relation to other structures in the vicinity. Building exists. Energy efficiency and drainage. All of those are existing. Those are your special permit criteria. None of those criteria speak to the questions that you're asking us. On the issue of the regulation amendments, is it consistent with the comprehensive plan? Yes, there are other uses that are very similar. If you allow a residential use in that building, you must allow this facility. The case law that we cite in our memo, and I don't want to get down the case law rabbit hole, is typically a single family home in a residential zone. That it works as a detox facility where people can come and live in that single family home, whether it's 9 or 12 or 14 people with limited supervision. That's not what we're doing. But that type of facility falls under the ADA and the Fair Housing Act, and that's not what we're proposing.
I just wanted to get to some of your verbiage in the definition.
Sure.
You have the word in your clip, you stated that this is not something to be doing, but the day patient or the outpatient.
No, I know, and that's a fair question.
And what I'm asking, and then when we've gone through section 23 Schedule A, we put limitations. You have suggested limitations there,
Yeah.
that it shall not be, less than 2 acres of land. Why can't we do that same type of verbiage where we're limiting it to in-house residential
You can,
and eliminate the outpatient?
I understand the confusion. And we're speaking to Haven's councils, we represent Haven before the Department of Health. And so we would be happy to limit the language to say, provided that there will be no daily visits by patients and it was purely residential. What we were told, and I can get you a better explanation, that in order for them to receive the license that they need to provide this type of treatment, they need both licenses, even though Haven is not proposing any daytime, coming and going locations. This is exclusively residential. So I would be happy to tweak the language of the definition so that, to make that more certain and to give the borough greater certainty or 100% comfort that it will operate in a manner that we're suggesting.
Well, and again, my issue is that when you're writing a definition like this opens the door for other potential locations. Very limited, obviously, on the location in the chart. Because it has to be up against the B1 zone and things like that.
But it's the only one.
Can we limit the definition also? It seems to be that you're telling us you need this definition because the state is saying that they have to be able to apply for that, but yet you're telling us we're not gonna do that. We're not going.
No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying on the definition, we are happy to work with you on modifying the definition, provided that we can go to the Department of Health and say, yes, we have the approvals we need from the Borough of Naugatuck for this type of facility. And I'm just not prepared, as I stand here right now, to give you that, but we are happy to work with you to make sure that what you approve is only what we're proposing.
And my other question is on the outdoor area that you planned.
Right.
There was a mentioning of fencing around it and.
Right, so.
I'm not sure that's necessarily a planning thing on that, might be more.
No, I understand. I didn't want anyone to suggest that somehow we added something at a later date without
Understood.
making the planning commission aware.
How does that look to the person from the outside? And how does that look from the person from the inside looking towards the outside? I mean, I don't want it to look like they're
No, I know.
caged people.
I mean, it's a part, it's more of a site plan issue, but I mean.
Unfortunately, it's the most
No,
walked area of that.
I understand, but it's the really the only location on the site adjacent to the Haven tendency space where that can be created. I mean, we'll make it a decorative fence and whatever, however they want, it's a small.
What is it, a fence you see through, you don't see through?
No, it's completely solid. There is no gate to the outside. It's simply an opportunity that if a resident happens also to be a smoker, they have an opportunity to go outside and have a cigarette.
Well, is it dining, it's referred to as, does that say dining area?
No, that's a different area.
No.
It's only the little one in the corner of the building.
Part of the parking lot, it takes up like.
Oh, that area over there, okay, so there is a dining area, would that be the same? So what's?
Something outdoors. That was on the original,
Oh, so that was something planned before.
Yeah.
That's not there now, okay.
So that was on the 2017 approved plans. It was gonna be an outdoor dining area.
Okay, now, so take back what I'm saying, I missed the other part of it.
Understood, okay.
Now I see what you're saying.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, go ahead.
You stated 60 to 80 employees,
60 to 80
three shifts, so how do they break down?
In terms of,
Who works day, evening, nighttime?
I'm not sure about the shifts, so.
So predominantly, you'll have nursing and recovery specialists in equal numbers throughout the shift. Case management and clinical will basically go from 8 to 8, because those are most likely.
So like 30 employees will be a peak during any time?
I'd say so, yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
so-
maybe 25 and.
Okay, so my question is, it was towards the parking, you're saying 19 spaces. And we have 25, 30 employees needing to park.
Because we're parking at the same ratio as other similar uses.
No, I understand, but maybe that's not appropriate.
I mean, we have a surplus of 20 spaces. We can modify the parking standard for this type of use to require more parking.
You also talked about how the patients would arrive. You said it's usually by family or,
Only two ways. A friend or loved one, family member, or most typically, a member of the Haven staff. That's how they
so
will.
does the member of the Haven staff go to a location to get them because they've been recommended to go there?
Yep.
I.e. if they're at a facility in Waterbury Hospital and they say you need to go to a
Whether it's
location.
Waterbury Hospital, whether their home, their place of work.
But a person can't walk in on their own.
That's not impossible, but it's atypical.
It's atypical, but it's the third way. A
I mean,
person can
if someone was,
self-walk in and say, I need help.
it's definitely a possibility.
But they would literally have to just,
If I can.
Yes.
We're getting way off the top. Which is the verbiage for the, proposed residential treatment facility. We're talking too much about the building that we're not talking about. So does anyone have any other questions or comments regarding the, proposed change to the zoning regulations, the verbiage? I have one. All the facilities you showed us, none were in a location, none appeared to be in a location similar to the one that is defined in the proposed zoning regulation change. Downtown, abutting I-1 zone. But do you have experience operating, if you will, a downtown treatment facility?
I'm trying to think, we have these things, we have a lot of these spread out across a lot of different places. The closest I would say is our Bedford, Indiana facility, which that facility is the largest facility in its location in that town. The other one would be Bloomington, Indiana. So Bloomington, Indiana is in a residential, it's not in downtown. Trying to think of, the closest thing we probably have is the Haven Detox, which would be the first one. And the reason I say that's the closest thing is it's next door to a daycare. And that usually is a concern, as safety is an issue. And the daycare is kind of the quintessential example of, if you can be next to a daycare, you can operate a safe facility. And I can literally stand on Haven Detox and hit the daycare. That's what I would recommend.
Essentially.
So short answer is no, not exactly.
But you are, or you two, are saying that proposing an operation in this environment, which is the environment you're asking for, poses no problem for you.
No.
No, it doesn't, or no, you're not saying that.
No, I mean, typically, treatment takes place indoors. And so, I think, you can take that building and move it 3 blocks down. Would you have that same concern?
Probably not, because treatment takes place inside the facility, but the residents are there and they're not in active treatment. That's why I'm asking the question, and your staff is there too. Nothing you showed me was not a campus setting. And now we're in a different environment. Just a question, asking you to respond to it.
Just a minor correction. We do have the hospital locations, which are not a campus setting. They're all under one roof, which is what we would expect here. So that's all one roof, one facility. I'm not sure if Worcester, that's one building, right?
Well, we have a primary building that's substance. We actually have a sister building in the back that's mental health.
So all mental health occurs in one building, all detox residential occurs in another building. It's all under one building. Now, are they in a metropolis or downtown location? No. But like Dr. Moroni said, it's all under one roof and all the treatment happens in the way. This location, we've been, to answer your question about would this pose any problems? We've been looking at this location and in discussions with the owners since 2017. We've had a lot of time to look at this location. And we think it is a primary quality location. Building's fantastic, the location's fantastic. Town of Naugatuck is, from what I know, fantastic, and it would work perfectly.
And again, these are not the questions that were asked when St. Mary's or Trinity went there for a different type of medical.
Aren't they outpatient facilities? They treat people 9 to 5 kind of thing?
But Elliot, the point is that these questions weren't asked. Even if there was, even if St. Mary's or Trinity were a full hospital, no one would be asking, show us the need. Why here? Why this building? The issue of need is a question for the Department of Health. You don't have a facility like this in the entire borough of Naugatuck. Your regulations don't even mention the use.
But the members of the commission are part of focusing on the residential aspect of this.
Right.
And we're trying to tease out what you base the need for a residential treatment facility, which is substantially different than an outpatient facility.
Because it's a more intense type of treatment.
I understood, but you know, if you were proposing a use that had absolutely for which there was no need in the community, let's say, suppose we put a hospital in that location. People would say, well, we got a hospital in Waterbury, we got a hospital here, a hospital, why we need a hospital? It would be a reasonable inquiry, don't you think?
You don't ask that about any other use.
I'm not.
The Department of Health can ask that question, but any other use, a dentist. We already have 12 dentists. A gas station, convenience store, there's a gas station right across the street. You don't ask those questions. It's not relevant.
When something's a permitted use, when medical office is a permitted use, then you don't engage in that inquiry, but you're now proposing to amend the zoning.
I'm sure that you and members of the commission have been part of applications for a regulation amendment for use that isn't permitted in that zone initially. It could be something that, you know, whether it's a hairdresser or a veterinarian or a medical office. So yeah, those are all things that some can come and apply for a regulation amendment. And the question isn't, do we need another veterinarian in Naugatuck? The question is it consistent with our comprehensive plan? That's the question before. And should we deny this, it's ultimately the zoning commission, are we complying with the Fair Housing Act and American with Disabilities Act? And have you made a fair provision for this use under your regulations where it is not permitted anywhere in the town?
We haven't had a chance to digest your memo, but that's certainly a consideration, absolutely.
And I want to be clear, happy to speak with Ed or with you, Elliot, or with Lori and tweak the language of the definition of residential treatment facility to give you greater comfort that this will be an entirely residential treatment.
Well, I have one other question. You said voluntary or pretty much involuntary, like committal type situation for them or no?
Purely voluntary. I mean,
So no
so the police
incarceration.
won't be picking somebody up and bringing them.
And you won't be going to the correctional facility to
No.
bring them in, okay?
That's a good question. Would it be wise to listen to the rest of his presentation? Is there any information that would be helpful?
Certainly.
You know, it's a few more pages if he wants.
I mean, Jack, if you want to quickly go through the rest of the slides.
We can. Or again, I'd like to leave it open to kind of try to answer the specific questions. I mean, again, I can, you know, like Cheyenne and John both kind of went through ASAM and all of that, and that's not what I think we want to hear. I mean, again, in terms of treatment, we try to create an environment that's secure, that's comfortable, that's dignified, so people stay long enough so that treatment can actually begin to take hold. A lot of treatment is simple repetition. It's breaking a bad habit with a good habit. And that's why inpatient works so well, because oftentimes you take people out of an adverse environment that's not conducive. I'll use the word recovery, that's not conducive to recovery. Put them in an environment where they have 24/7 support. Give them enough of opportunity to start feeling better. So where their brain, the first thought in the morning is, I've got to get up and use, to a thought where, geez, maybe I can have a decent life. That's the beginning of change. And that's what you're gonna, see in the rest of the presentation or any of that. I can go on and give you clinical application after clinical application. I can give you success story after success story. But unfortunately, we read in the paper every day of people dying from this terrible illness. And, the new definition is not like before. Addiction is known as a chronic illness. What does that say? It's like diabetes. It doesn't go away. People don't leave and they're not cured. It's a lifelong journey. And for me, it's a spiritual journey. That's how I maintain my sobriety. But for everybody, it's not the same. It can be different. And the idea is that we need to be able to be with someone for a long enough period of time to find that key that opens up, what is it that makes you happy? Because it's for all of us. What is it that makes us get up and say, wow, today is beautiful. Those trees outside are green. What a wonderful day. It doesn't happen in an instance. And oftentimes what the value of inpatient is versus outpatient is you take someone out of that environment. And unfortunately, if they go back into that toxic environment, then they're at risk again. And so it's our job as a treatment provider to create a treatment plan for each individual that gives them the best opportunity to be successful. And whether it's the neighbor next door, or there's not a treatment facility in a 30-mile radius from here. This is actually perfect. This is a perfect location for people to be able to access care that is needed. Ellie, you talked about hospitals and stuff. Emergency rooms are overcrowded. Doctors are frustrated because they don't know what to do. It's not put a cast on, it's not stitch them up. It's a long journey and they can't do that in the emergency room. So there needs to be a healthy alternative for people to go. And a place for people to go. And it's definitely not back on the street where our young kids are dying at too quickly a rate. Who wants to go to a 17-year-old funeral? Not me.
Well, speaking of that, what is the age group here?
Excuse
The
me?
age group.
So adults, 18 plus. We're adult facility.
So
And I think
they stay in this, they don't leave at all for the length of stay that they're here for the month or two? So they only go in that little piece of.
in most instances, someone like Cheyenne had mentioned earlier, typical detox for alcohol is actually shorter and yet it's the most deadly. That's around 3 to 5 days. Opiates can be anywhere from 6 to 8 days. Then the next phase is what's called rehab. And that can go anywhere from, let's say, day 10 to day 30, 35, 40. And then really what would be ideal is to identify a safe environment for them to begin long-term outpatient treatment. A really good treatment plan is a year's worth of treatment, usually ending with individual counseling for the last 6 months.
But they stay within this facility in that little area.
Yes.
So maybe a two-part question. What's the percentage of people that check themselves out after 6 days, 10 days, 12 days? And second part, when leaving the facility, are they escorted by staff or are they open the doors and see you later, bye?
In most instances, and I'm not gonna say in every instance because I can't predict the future, but in most instances, they're either picked up by their family or loved ones, or they're driven back to their next place of living by Haven Transportation. I mean, honestly, transportation is a big piece of it, especially coming in. Heaven forbid, we don't want someone to get in a car drunk and drive into the facility. We don't want someone that's under the influence, which most people are when they enter into treatment to begin with. So transportation is really a big piece of keeping people safe along with the community.
So first part of that question,
Say that again.
the first part of that question, what percentage leave after 6 days, 10 days, 12 days?
So typically, inpatient stays, I would say 90+% successful conclusions.
They stay the full period that they.
Plus, right.
Do they show up under the influence? I know some,
Oftentimes,
they
yes,
have, they have to be, you know.
no, they don't.
Check in.
No, they do not. They're usually placed into the most appropriate level of care. If they are dependent, and when they stop using, they will go into withdrawal, they will undergo a medical protocol. So it'll help mitigate the symptoms of the withdrawal and on top of it, keep them safe, you know, there's actually 2 drugs that can cause death pretty quickly. And they're both legal, and that's alcohol and benzodiazepines.
I will say this, I did have a person who lived near me who went through a process. It took him about 3 times going to and from, but it was a situation where he was picked up. He was brought to a facility. Didn't make it, you know, after the first time, relapsed at the second, but today is a very good citizen who's moved on in his life. So I understand your process of what you're saying, how they've been picked up. He left when he was at his end of his, there was an agreement that was done with his family to make sure that he had a place to go to, all that type of stuff. So I do understand what you're saying.
Thank you, and you're right on. Research will show that the average person will go through 3 30-day stays before they get it.
And that was him.
Right, are there any?
I just want, the medical part of the facility, would that be able to have emergency care, like if the client needed
Narcan.
Narcan, for instance, yeah.
Well, Narcan is definitely part of what we offer. So the real challenge between a facility at our level 3, 7, and 4 is the level of ability for intravenous oxygen and all. We're not a hospital, so we don't have the infrastructure to kind of provide oxygen, intravenous stuff like that. That would be the biggest difference in that. So primarily, number 1 problem for someone that enters our doors is a substance use diagnosis. If it's medical primarily, they really go on.
Thank you.
So as I indicated, to add, we're happy to tweak the language. I mean, I don't think it's all that difficult. I mean, we can either add, provided that the facility only will provide 24-hour residential care with no daily outpatient service. I mean, we can do that. You know, we have our public hearing opening before the zoning commission, I think on May 14th. But I guess I need to hear from you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I know that you sort of want to hear about efficacy rates. I think Jack was eloquent about the difficulty of that. I don't know of another medical use. You say, well, you know, Dr. Smith, you want to be a dentist here? How often do your root canals are successful? You don't ask that question. So if you want us to try to put something together to the best of our ability, not creating our own criteria and some sort of smoke screen, but as Jack just testified, being really candid and describing what their experience has been, we can do that. And we're happy to modify the language of the definition, but I guess we need to hear from you how you want to move forward.
Well, I would like you to work with Lori on modifying the language and Ed. May get it all done at the same time for your other hat. And don't back up too soon. I need you to read into the record the letter from NEDC on this topic.
So we received a letter, President and CEO Ron Pugliese, 270 Church Street, Naugatuck, Connecticut. At the April 22nd, 2024 Naugatuck Economic Development Corporation, NEDC Board of Directors meeting, Carlos Santos made a motion to formally oppose the special permit application and application to amend the Naugatuck zoning regulations to permit residential treatment facilities in a B1 zone submitted by Heritage Downtown LLC. This board voted unanimously that the proposed use is not consistent with Naugatuck's plan of development as well as the major downtown upgrades that are in progress. Copy of the minutes are attached. And I didn't have the minutes right here. I didn't have it. Did you want me to read the minutes or can I forward all this to you?
That's fine.
Are there any other questions or comments right now?
Well, I'll make one comment, Mr. Chairman, is that when we had similar questions like this when we were looking at the cannabis regulations and the verbiage and the wording and whatnot. One of the things we did do was, we made the definitions based upon what the state was doing at that time and things like that. And then when it came down to locations, that's where we got the limited part of where we wanted to see the facility in the town. And we worked with that for limiting the location. I guess that's kind of like what we would do here potentially, but.
I believe this one is limited because of the butting up to an I-1 zone. This is the only B2.
Well, I'm saying, yeah, the location is limited, but the definition, when we talk about the definition changing, I understand that comes directly from the state on things like that. And I don't know whether we should change the wording or not.
By the way, it could be as simple as changing the and or to and. You need both.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but we're happy to work on it. And either bring it back to you, or you can make a recommendation to the zoning commission that you want to see the language more tailored.
What is the sense of the commission? We don't have to do anything tonight. We have 35 days, so there's been a pile of stuff just on this part of the agenda.
I personally would like to digest it.
Anyone else?
Myself as well.
In that case, we will defer any action on the request from the zoning commission until our June meeting.
June 3rd.
June 3rd. Next item under new business.
Thank you. Additional.
See a commission discussion on decision regarding a referral from the zoning commission for a proposed special permit application for a residential treatment facility to be located at 58 Maple Street, applicant Heritage LLC. The second part.
Oh, I thought we were doing something simultaneously.
No, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Couldn't simultaneously. However, we have only one course of action available to us on this one. Because at this point, 8:22 tonight, there is no language in the zoning regulations to allow it, so all we can do is deny it.
Well, I mean.
Or
if
you
we're-
can
we're
withdraw.
keeping- I think if we're keeping the first part open, we can keep the second part.
Well, we can't make any. Well, okay, I can accept the application.
Yeah, I
and put it in the-
let's talk about both, we'll come back in June.
That's very good.
Okay, then we'll
Okay.
accept the application that goes on
Okay.
hold pending the resolution of the language on the
thank you.
zoning regulations. Okay. Is there anything else?
Thank you, both.
Thank you. Come before the commission.
One of the other things we have had Connecticut Water report I gave everybody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's just under correspondence we received, from Connecticut Water Company. It's for an interconnection that had been in place more than 2 decades, and they're just trying to increase the flow from, I think, half a million gallons per day to 1 million to accommodate the next 20-year planning period. So it's just, if anybody have any comments, they could submit them to the deep, which is on page 111, and there's the address of the. I know I did get an email from Christine Yanelli. She had comments and wanted to know if it was on our agenda tonight. I says it's just correspondence. And I explained to her that she can send her comments as the Conservation Commission chair. She can.
And it's a non-controversial thing, if you took the time to read the meeting, you paid for the full pay. There's no construction, there's no relocation of water supply or anything else. Doesn't affect us at all. So if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
I thought he left.
This one a second. That'll be a second.
I'll second.
I want to stay here.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? See you all June 3rd.
Night.